All right, welcome. We're going to go over some instructional coaching models and strategies presented by myself, Jasmine Mack. And
Nicholas Ward. We had three main objectives in this presentation. It's to provide an overview of four different instructional coaching methods, compare and contrast different methods of instructional coaching, present our preferred coaching model, explaining why it would be the most effective in our school, and how its implementation would support both teacher and student growth.
so we wanted to start off by acknowledging what coaching is. Instructional coaching focuses both on content and practice, not just one or the other. Instructional coaches work with teachers that they serve as thought partners, guides, and supports for the process of experimenting, reflecting, and improving. This will look like individualized professional learning, basically working with the educator to identify areas of improvement, set goals, and design actionable plans for implementation. It might look like reflective practice. The coach encourages the educator to reflect on their practice by examining methods, beliefs, and assumptions. And then it may also look like data informed feedback. The coach utilizes data to provide meaningful feedback to educators. Coaches analyze student data, observation notes, and other relevant metrics to help teachers identify strengths, areas for growth, and potential instructional adjustments.
This is what coaching is not. It's not telling the teacher what to do. So we're not just advice dumping or trying to fix people. We're asking questions and we co-decide the next steps. It's not a one-off PD or tool demo. So we're not using just a single workshop model or app tour. It's short cycles with goals, practice, and evidence. We're not doing the teacher's job. So we're not taking over planning, teaching, or grading. We're going to co-plan, co-model. Teachers own the implementation. We're certainly not app pushing. So we're not just pushing platforms because they're shiny or new. This isn't any surveillance or data mining, so we're not collecting video work samples without consent. The data is agreed upon, it's minimal, and it's used for reflection. And then we're trying our best not to be vague or endless. So not leaving any open-ended chats going. We want to set time-bound goals, concrete actions, and clear success measures.
All right, so we wanted to ask ourselves a few guiding questions while we evaluated the models. When looking at the models we wanted to choose, we knew that we wanted models that would move student work, protect teacher trust, run in a short cycle, fit with what we already use, and then could scale without us. Models that didn't clear at least three got dropped, or we tried to pair it with another, so we stay impact focused and realistic.
The first model we looked at was the Grow coaching model. And the Grow model is widely credited to Graham Alexander in the 1980s with Alan Fine and Sir John Whitmore as contributing members. Whitmore then codified and popularized it in his book called Coaching for Performance. And so Grow stands for goal, reality, options, or obstacles in a will or way forward. These are the four sequential phases that move coach and teacher from clarity to commitment. This model structures coaching to stay purposeful, data informed, and next step driven. The ultimate goal is to help teachers author their own plan and prove impact with student artifacts. So, when do we use this model? You use it if you need fast alignment or a mid cycle tune up in your class. You can use this when a teacher is ready to choose one move for one outcome. And you can also use this if you're in a time constraint. So if time is tight and you only have a 15-minute coaching block, this grow model would work for you. Furthermore, why it works is that it's non-directive coaching. Coach asks and teacher decides, which places the ownership back on the teacher. It's a chance for some adult learning. So we're starting with the teacher's context and then we build on the strengths that they already have. It's evidence anchored. And so this reality step uses student work. Maybe it's a teaching video or data, and we're not just using any hanging opinions that we have. And then, of course, you can view your small wins, and one change in 1 to 2 weeks helps create momentum and trust. And so, as a coach, when we look at our model, we're starting to ask these types of questions like, what specific goal are you trying to achieve? How far off is the achievement of your goal? Or what do you need to do that you're not currently doing? How could you do these things differently? What options exist to help you achieve your goal? Exactly how committed are you to this goal? Or how will you know when you have achieved your goal? And here's an example from my history class. We use a lot of document based questions. And so we identify my goal is that in the next 2 weeks, I want 70% to show that they can correctly cite quotes. When I look at the data, look at the reality, it's only 42% of those students can do that. And when I do another data dive, I can see that the main error is that they're missing their citations. When we look at options or a path forward, I can use sentence frames, annotated exemplars, targeted docs, or comments. And then my way forward would be to use these frames and exemplar for the next two lessons, collect 8 samples by Friday, and then rescore those students. The next model that I looked at was the impact cycle model. This was developed by Jim Knight, and it's a comprehensive framework for instructional coaching that includes a series of stages, mainly identify, learn, and improve. This model provides a structured approach to coaching, teachers towards strengthening their instruction and in the process, enhancing student outcomes. So you would use this impact cycle when you can name a student metric and gather quick evidence, when you're testing a specific classroom routine, um, or remembering that this is a non-judgmental check, so you can provide a brief video or student work samples, and it's teacher controlled. Why I think this model really works is because you're starting with reality first. So you're looking at a short video or student samples that can make the problem really obvious or stand out. We're trying one move at a time with this model, and so it's easier to implement and easier to measure. And then, of course, you get the fast feedback. So 2 to 3 lessons, check the data, and then you adjust, and the progress becomes more visible. So if we look over here, teachers are setting SMART goals with coaches' guidance. We move into learning strategies so teachers can learn and implement those strategies. And then lastly, we're improving the practice. So teachers can refine these strategies based on the results that they receive. So again, this is another model from my history class. So we're going to start with a baseline video, and I'm looking at talk time. So right now it's 70% me, 30% students. My goal is for it to look more like 55-45 by my third lesson. And I want 80% of students to speak 2 or more times. When I get into my learning strategy, I can use talk tokens, I can use cold calls with sentence stems, or I can make a checklist that I want the kids to respond to. And then lastly, I'm in my improve phase. So we run 3 lessons, we tally the talk time and the number of speakers, and we can change our prompts or our groups accordingly. I think impact really works because we start with the reality. Try one move, check the actual student data. We can do this in days, and we don't have to do it in months.
All right, so I examined the FUEL model. It's a framework developed by John Whitmore that provides coaches with an approach to conducting effective coaching conversations. FUEL stands for frame, understand, explore, and layout, representing 4 sequential phases that guide both coach and client through a productive coaching dialogue. This model ensures coaching conversations remain focused, productive, and outcome-oriented. It allows individuals to discover their own solutions and build sustainable change. The coach would frame the conversation by asking a question like, what would you like to focus on in our time together today? They'll frame their understand phase by saying something like, what have you already tried and what were the results? In the explore phase, the coach may ask, what opportunities might be hidden within this challenge? In the layout phase, a coach might ask a question like, based on our conversation, what specific actions will you take? Ultimately, the coach is putting the coachee in a position to reflect and create a plan for implementation. Let's look at an example of this. So, for this example, we'll think through a coach who would like to increase student engagement. So, the coach will say something like, let's focus today on your goal of increasing student engagement. What does engagement look like to you in your classroom? The teacher, I want more students to participate in discussions instead of just a few. The coach moves to the understand phase. What strategies have you tried so far? And what are you noticing about how students respond? Teacher would say, I ask open-ended questions, but usually only 3 or 4 students answer. The others seem checked out. So the coach is getting a better understanding of what's going on. Moving to the explore phase, the coach says, imagine your ideal scenario. What would student discussions look like? The teacher, I like at least half the class contributing ideas with students responding to each other instead of just me. The coach then frames the layouts. What steps could you take to move closer to that vision? The teacher, maybe I could use think, pair, share to get everyone talking first, then invite pairs to share with the whole class. The coach affirms the choice. Great idea. How about trying that in tomorrow's lesson? I'll stop by to observe and we can debrief what we worked on to adjust. In this model, you're clarifying the goal, you're reflecting on what's presently occurring, you're envisioning the future, and then you're creating an actionable plan with support from your coach that aligns to your envisioned future. Another model I examined was the SMART coaching model. This is a goal setting framework that helps coaches and teachers create defined, achievable objectives during coaching conversations. SMART is an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound, providing a structured approach to ensure goals are clear, trackable, and realistic. The SMART model transforms aspirations into action plans, making it easier for them to stay focused, motivated, and accountable while working towards meaningful change. We'll look at an example of the SMART coaching model. Okay, under the same line or guise as the field model, we're going to think through improving student participation in class discussions. The coach has an or the coachee has an opportunity to create a SMART goal to improve student participation in class. The goal should be specific. I want to increase the number of students actively contributing to whole class discussions. This goal should be measurable. Currently, 3 to 4 students dominate the conversation. I want at least 10 students to participate per class discussion. The goal should be achievable. I'll use Think, Pair, Share twice per week to ensure every student has time to prepare and share their thoughts. The goal should be relevant. Boosting participation aligns with the school's focus on student engagement and critical thinking. And then the goal should be time bound. Within the next 4 weeks, I'll track student participation and aim for consistent involvement from 10 plus students by the end of the month. And so ultimately, the SMART coaching model allows the teacher to set a goal that's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound.
So we started to get into the phase where we needed to compare and contrast the different models. And so when we start comparing the models, we can see that they all have a collaborative partnership piece. All models emphasize the coach and coachee relationship as a partnership, where the person being coached drives their own learning rather than being directed by the coach only. They all had a structured framework approach. All 4 models provide step-by-step frameworks that guide coaching conversations from start to finish. They were all goal oriented, and each model emphasized establishing clear objectives and outcomes. And they all had actionable planning. And so each model includes concrete action steps and follow through that allows the teacher to implement the practice in the classroom. And when we checked, they were all widely accepted. Coaches around the world utilize each of these models to help support the teacher in their development and student academic success.
There were some key differences across the models. The grow model is more of like non-directive conversation. What's unique about it is that it uses questions to create a teacher own next step. The impact model is a short improvement loop. Identify, learn, improve. It starts with baseline evidence, often a video, teach student work samples, and then it tests one strategy over 2 to 3 lessons with before and after data. The field model is more of like a framing of conversation. You frame, understand, explore, and create a layout. This one it surfaces the context, beliefs, and constraints first, which is great for more difficult situations, and then it hands off to an action model. The SMART model is a goal writing formula. It turned like unclear, fuzzy aims into a clear, measurable, time-bound sentence, and is not a conversation or a cycle. Grow gets a teacher to own next steps. Impact runs a short test of one strategy and measures it. Fuel helps when the situation is messy and needs framing. Smart turns aims into measurable sentences. We often chain them. Fuel to understand, smart to write the goal, grow to decide, and impact to do and measure.
So when it came down to my selection, I think the cycle that I'm most confident in is Jim Knight's impact cycle because it matches how my history class produces constant and measurable evidence with our DBQs and our sourcing, along with our corroboration. We also do some seminar talks. And so we can see that progress immediately and act on it. I think that the short focus loop fits our time constraints of like 45 minutes in class. So it keeps the coaching non-evaluative and teacher owned, and it plugs into some tools that we already use, like Google Classroom rubrics and PLC trackers. I would probably use Grow with this for some quick goal setting and mid-cycle changes, but I think it's the impact cycle that gives me the due or the measurable energy that history needs in order to see my tangible gains in days and not months.
Similarly to Nick, I also chose Jim Knight's impact cycle. I really appreciate how this model centers the work around student learning and continuously seeks to improve outcomes for students. The cycle identifying a goal, learning a strategy, and improving through reflection keeps both teachers and coaches focused on what matters most, which is ultimately student impact. I think this approach fits well into my school because it creates a clear, repeatable process that supports teacher growth while holding us accountable to measure student progress overall.
Here are our references. We also created a Google form, so please take a moment to give us some feedback on our presentation. This survey should only take you 2 minutes. Thank you for watching.
Thank you. Hopefully, you picked up a model that you would like to implement with your coaches.